We'll go ahead and start recording. So yesterday we started talking about the 3 lines of evidence. We said fossil record's the first line because it's got, cases where we can actually see an entire progression from a really primitive form, something that's very, very unlike anything we have on Earth now. There's nothing like Pakicetus on Earth now. You look at some of the stuff in the Burgess Shale. That stuff is bizarre. Nothing like it on Earth now. So we sometimes see really weird ancient forms, but sometimes if we're lucky, we can see a chain that runs all the way up to a modern form. So we've got the fossil record. The other one, and you just mentioned it, was chemical evidence and DNA evidence, just like solving a crime. DNA evidence. But it's that second one that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to give this another of those split names, structural or morphological evidence. Ooh, morphological. Everybody always does my favorite little tweak. And when I say, what does the word morph mean? You know what they say? They say to change. No! That's not what it means. Morph means shape or form. When people use it as they morphed into something else, they changed shape or form. It's not about the changing, it's about the shape. So we're going to talk about structural or morphological evidence, how things are built, how things are shaped, the structures in their bodies. You drew that. It is a bat. Structural evidence, homologous structures. Structures that appear in different species but share a shape. And you drew this picture. Yeah, it is. So this is the arm of a human, the foreleg of a cat, the foreflipper of a whale, and the wing of a bat. It sounds like a witch's spell of some sort. And what do we notice? Well, we've got a bunch of long bones, many, many tiny bones, 3 bones, 1 bone. Oh. Bunch of long bones, many, many tiny bones, 2 bones, 3 bones. Oh. Bunch of long bones, many, many tiny bones, 2 bones, 2 bones, 1 bone, 2 bones, 1 bone, 2 bones, 1 bone. Oh, look over here. Bunch of long bones, many, many tiny bones, 2 bones, 1 bone. Huh. Weird. And if you go to the Carnegie, with us, my happiest moment on the field trip last year occurred when one of my biology students, standing in front of a particular skeleton, and I won't tell you where it is, looked up and went, "Oh my gosh, Moser, look at that. Bunch of bones, 2 bones, 1 bone. Wow." Yes. Because you can see it on the skeletons. Okay, what are you confused about? What does the prefix homo mean? Same. Homologous structures are structures with the same underlying shape. They show a structural similarity. Now, very often, we take these as evidence of common ancestors. So homologous structures, typically, we look at them and we think, at some point you two had a common ancestor. At some point, the path that each species was on diverged. What does it mean to diverge? To split. Die means 2. To diverge means to go into 2 different directions. So when we're looking at homologous structures, we very often think, okay, this is evidence that there was some common ancestor. This is an interesting one. So who here can put their hand on their deltoid? Okay, your deltoid is the muscle up here. It's the muscle right up here. You have a deltoid, all of you. Guess who else has a deltoid? Your cat, your dog, a horse, a sheep, a goat, a frog. They all have deltoids. Similar muscular arrangement, similar skeletal arrangement tends to point towards this common ancestry. Now, there are cases where the similar structures are used somewhat differently. So let's go back to this. Are bats using their phalanges the same way you are? No, because if they were, they'd steal your car keys, and they would, open the door to your house, and they'd use the remote control. They're not using their phalanges the same way you are, thankfully. Are we using our phalanges the same way whales are? No, because their phalanges are all encased in that one big flipper now. So the homologous structures can, over time, end up with slightly different uses. That's that whole process of biological change over time. So here's the neat thing. We actually now in science and biology use evolutionary relationships to classify organisms. We didn't necessarily used to. What do these three things have in common? They're all reptiles. They're all cold-blooded. Do they have backbones?
Yeah.
Yes. Do they give live birth?
Yes. No. They lay eggs.
They're egg layers. Now, there are some snakes that trick us by doing the whole eggs hatch inside the body thing, but they still don't give what we would think of as live birth. Do they nurse their young?
No, they let them go.
No parental care whatsoever. Do they have fur? No. We know these things are all reptiles. Hold on. We know these things are all reptiles. We know these things are all pretty closely related. Are these things closely related to a frog?
Yes.
Are they more closely related to a frog or to you?
Frog. Or warm-blooded.
Frog. How do you know that? Because we just know that, because reptiles and amphibians, come on, we talk about them together all the time. That's how. What do you mean, how do we know that? We actually, because they're all cold-blooded, so you're saying they have things in common? Oh, what an interesting statement, sir. Biological classification is based on evolutionary relatedness. And we used to do it just visually. We would look at them and say, okay, well, they're all cold-blooded. Okay, well, they're all, these guys all have scales. These guys all have claws. These guys all have a skull that looks like this. Now we do some other stuff, too. But if we're just looking at structural evidence for these relationships, we can build a family tree. And we do that using what's called a cladogram. We will pick this up tomorrow. For tomorrow, your job in pencil is to make a guess at each one of these organisms that you think has an amnion. That's it. See you then.